So we will call this March 2023 meeting of the Glendale Village Council to order. As usual, we will start our meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So a bit of housekeeping. Will everyone please make sure that any of your telephones or other devices are put on silent? My name is Mike Bessel. I'm the Vice Mayor of the Village of Glendale. Our Mayor, Don Lofty, could not make it this evening, so I have the privilege of presiding over this meeting. To start, I will ask our clerk if we have a quorum.
I confirm the presence of a quorum.
Thank you. And we have minutes from the previous meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's approve the agenda. We have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And then we have minutes from the February 6th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, thank you for that. Normally we would go to public comment, but we have a large group of people here for two different swearing-ins. And if it's okay with council, I'd like to switch and swear in firefighters and police officers first and then move on with the rest of the agenda. So no opposition to that. So I will call up first our firefighters. Cameron Bartlett, Simon Blank, Jordan Flynn, Anthony Hunt, and Natalie Smith. Chief, would you like to say a few words about these candidates for Village of Glendale firefighter?
Yep, absolutely. Mr. Bartlett, you guys can just come over here if you guys want. Okay. Mr. Bartlett, Cameron graduated from Edgewood High School. Cameron has been around the fire service his entire life. Raised in the Madison Township Fire Department, where his father was a captain. Cameron has attended the OFA, the Ohio Fire Academy's volunteer fire class, and that's a 36-hour volunteer fire card, so Cameron can hit the ground running. Simon graduated from Mason High School. He's currently attending the OFA, the Ohio Fire Academy EMT class. He cannot be here tonight because he's in class. So we'll move on to Mr. Flynn. Jordan graduated Lakota West and Butler Tech. Jordan's been around the fire service his entire life as well, with his dad's a volunteer firefighter. He currently works in the HVAC field, HVAC, and has now decided that he wants to try and work in the fire service and follow his father's footsteps. Anthony Hunt graduated from Old Dominion Job Corps in 2016, formal uniformed service member from the Ohio National Guard as an E4 specialist, and is looking forward to become a volunteer firefighter with Glendale. Natalie Smith graduated from St. Ursula, then graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a bachelor's in communication and marketing. Natalie is a retired Marine and works at Harley-Davidson as a salesperson, and is also a village resident. So we're very excited to have her, and she's going to be attending a 36-hour volunteer class here very, very soon, and she'll be a certified firefighter as well.
Very good, and I missed which person is not here?
Simon Blank
Simon
is not
Blank
here.
is not here, okay. So I will come down and swear you.
No, you need a motion.
I'm sorry, a motion?
You need a motion.
So
Yeah.
we need a motion for these firefighters to become firefighters for the Village of Glendale.
Mayor, Councilmember Bessel, we have the ordinances, this is all covered under 2023.
I've got it. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
you
sorry.
need to read it.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll go through those.
We have to read it? Okay.
Mhm.
An ordinance appointing Glendale volunteer firefighters, establishing a one-year probationary period, and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. We'll just start with the suspension of 3 readings.
Okay. And for that ordinance that I just read, Is there a motion to suspend the three reads?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then back to the ordinance itself is a motion for the ordinance.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Okay. Will the clerk please take the roll call vote for the motion to dispense with the three reads?
For ordinance 2023-15, to dispense with the three reads, Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Baysmith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
For ordinance 2023-15, Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Baysmith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So now I can swear in.
Now you can swear.
I will get the sequence right on the next.
Don't trip.
So, will you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Ohio. And I will faithfully and impartially discharge. The duties of Glendale Volunteer Firefighter. To the best of my ability, so help me God. Thank you.
Don't trip. That's my other duty. Congratulations.
Thank you again.
I'm off in this little
Thank you
break
again.
in here. Congratulations.
By yourself.
Okay, now that the rookie's been through that rough patch of the first ordinance, we will go on to the appointment of the police officers. We can swear these gentlemen in at the same time, but we will do each ordinance for them separately. So for ordinance 2023-13, an ordinance appointing David Gillum to the position of police officer on a part-time basis, establishing compensation, and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion to dispense with the three readings?
Rich can pin you.
Second.
Is he gonna pin you?
Madam Clerk, will you take the vote for the suspension of three readings?
For ordinance 2023-13, to dispense with the three reads, Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Baysmith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
And for the motion itself? is
No,
there-
we don't have a motion or a second on the ordinance yet.
On the what?
On the ordinance, we don't have a
On the
motion or a
ordinance?
second. Yeah.
And is there a motion for the ordinance itself on the ordinance?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote for the ordinance?
Sure. For ordinance 2023-13, Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Baysmith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Come and swear you.
No, you have to do the other one.
14 as well.
Oh, we have to do
Yeah.
14. You are correct. We said we'd do them at the same time. So for ordinance 2023-14, an ordinance appointing Ron Wallace to the position of police officer on a part-time basis, establishing compensation and declaring an emergency. Is there a motion to dispense with the three reads?
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, will you take the vote for that?
Do we want to have
Either way.
the introduction, or does it matter? In the ordinance?
I
No,
did, I read it, but, okay, so,
Yeah, normally, we
Police
normally,
chief wanna say some words?
yeah,
Do you do a
have
motion for the ordinance?
the
or is
chief
that after?
introduce, and then we'll take the ordinance motion. I just want to
Okay.
make sure,
okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
We can do that.
First, Ron Wallace. Ron was a retired fire chief from the city of Norwood. He served with Norwood for 35 and a half years. Ron was also a part-time police officer with Gulf Manor. He holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Xavier with a focus in criminalistics. He resides in Miami Township, Claremont County with his wife, Donna. They have a son who is a Cincinnati firefighter, his wife, Carly, and their grandson, Connor, who is 3 years old. Ron is currently with the Park District.
Okay. Thank you.
David Gillen is a graduate from Madeira High School. He's attending the University of Cincinnati right now for his criminal justice degree. He is a volunteer firefighter with the Village of Glendale Fire Department. He holds a Firefighter 1 certification as well as an EMT certification. He comes to us from New Richmond Police Department.
Very good. So I think we still need to vote for the actual ordinance 2023-14.
We need a motion for the ordinance first. We can't vote till we have the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Second? Okay. Now we can
Now
vote.
we're ready. Okay, for ordinance 2023-14, to dispense with the three reads, Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Baseman,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
For the ordinance, Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Baseman,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think we had the vote
Yep.
for, okay, very good. So now for the swearing in.
Yeah, no, we didn't.
Mr. Mayor, Mike,
Yes, ma'am?
Do you want to do
I didn't hear the vote for 2023-14.
13?
That's what we just did.
Yes, we did.
13.
We did 13
and
also.
14?
Yeah, we've done both.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I state your name.
I, David Gillen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of police officer for the Village of Glendale
the duties of police officer for the Village of Glendale
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so we'll go back now on our agenda to the public comment section. And we have with us, I think tonight, Ms. Michelle Gottschlick. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, hi everybody. I'd like to introduce Wade Johnston. He is going to be speaking.
Okay, and this is for the Mill Creek Collaborative and Tri-State Trails, a presentation for that group.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you all. So I'm here today with a request for financial support for a feasibility study that we are leading for a big trail project that we call the Mill Creek Triangle Trail. The vision for this trail is outlined in some of the maps that were distributed in your packet. And the whole premise is to build a trail network that roughly comprises the shape of a triangle from Sharon Woods down to Arlington Heights, then up the West Fork of the Mill Creek connecting to Glenwood Gardens, and then from Glenwood Gardens east over to Sharon Woods. So we have been working as a coalition for better part of 7 years with many of the local governments involved in the Connecting Active Communities Coalition that Michelle has been the leader for. And just last December, Great Parks of Hamilton County closed on a critical piece of property south of Sharon Woods that follows an old rail line. And that has created the momentum that we've been waiting for to dive in on a feasibility study to understand what are the costs associated with building the trail for sections of the trail that are publicly held, and then what will it take to fill in the gaps where there's not publicly held land. And so we're really excited to begin that process. And we have been working with many of the communities along the route to develop a fundraising strategy that would allow us to accomplish what we aim to with the feasibility study. And so the general scope of that is to vet the routes of the proposed trail and look at alternatives so we can come up with preferred trail alignment. Then partner with a qualified engineering firm so that we can understand what are the costs associated with building the preferred alignment and alternatives. Conduct public engagement along the way to get feedback from the public. And then ultimately position projects in the triangle to be ready to apply for funding. So as you all know, there's a lot of federal infrastructure money available right now. And so if we're not ready to apply, then we're missing out on the opportunity to get that funding spent in Hamilton County. So that is the general gist of it. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I'll stop talking.
All right. Are there any questions about the project?
Yes, there are. I'd like you to go into a bit more detail about public engagement. You're covering a lot of ground. There's a lot of interest in this. And at what point, how do you anticipate engaging the public and getting public input?
Yeah, we would have at least one public meeting throughout the process. The goal in doing the feasibility study and the way that we've laid it out is to fit into ODOT's project development process. So this is the sequence of activities that you need to do to be ready to apply for funding, or when you have received funding to execute it in their protocol of different steps that you need to do. So we will have at least one public engagement meeting as a part of this to get feedback from the public on the proposed routes, and that will likely be an in-person meeting with a follow-up survey and like an option to explore the content virtually as well. And then as we get closer to, or when we're ready to apply for a grant, there's another public engagement piece that is required as part of the federal process.
Question. You mentioned funding request. What kind of funding are you looking from, like, this community?
Yes, so we have included in the letter a request for $7,500, and the scope of the study for we requested bids from 4 different engineering firms. We've received 2 back. The range of those services is $200,000 to $250,000, and so basically we've laid out a funding strategy asking all the communities involved, several county agencies, and then some other interested parties to contribute to raise that minimum that we need to do the study.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Is the Little Miami Scenic Trail, is that the one that currently goes through Loveland?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How long is this project, when did it start? Is this a recent project, or is it been planned for a decade?
Yeah, this project, I think, was originally conceptualized maybe 8 or so years ago. And that was thanks to the leadership of Michelle, and Great Parks of Hamilton County was very instrumental in it, as well as the late Commissioner Todd Fortune. So these types of projects are long and complex, and multi-jurisdictional collaboration is often a challenging thing to work on. But over the course of 7 years, we've been meeting monthly for pretty much 7 years, and we've made a lot of really good progress. Mill Creek Alliance, one of the partners involved in this, has gotten access to some land through conservation easements. Great Parks has acquired land, and so the idea for this has been around for a while, but now we're really ready to put pen to paper and say, how much will this cost? And then we can figure out a funding strategy that's going to allow us to bite it off into chunks.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming
Yes.
and making the presentation, and we'll give this consideration.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say again, thank you. And since this falls under the Recreation and Playgrounds Committee, we will schedule in a future time to sit down in a committee meeting and talk more and invite members of the public. So look forward to doing that, and we'll be in touch about a date.
Yes, and thank you for leading a tour of the green space with us out there to see it for ourselves.
Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you again for your presentation. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address council?
I do. My name is Kevin Parrish, a resident of the village of Glendale at 176 Washington Avenue. I was sad that I missed the 5:30 meeting of the Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Commission. I was wondering, did they put out an annual report for that commission for this year, for 2022?
I don't know if they put out a report, Kevin, but this is
Mr. Parrish,
an opportunity.
if I may, I'm sorry.
You may, but I'll just say this is an opportunity for you to make public comment. It's not a question and answer session, so, but go
Okay,
ahead.
I ask questions about the
As you asked at the
business
conclusion of, as you asked after that meeting had concluded, no.
Okay.
I'm just saying how sloppy our business is. I mean, year in, we're in the first quarter of the new year, and nobody's making reports, giving any kind of transparency and accountability of what they did for the past year. Does that really make sense?
You may continue speaking.
Okay. Well, since we know I speak mostly on the water issue, has anybody made any concern of a state of emergency for our village of Glendale water situation, which we are 70 years out of an update on our pipes? 70 years. How does that affect residents for liability when you have a system that after 50 years, now the next 70 years, you have a system that is out of date? Does that affect us pretty well, or do we need to get more insurance? Because this rain is not going to stop. I was really taken back when I looked at the amount of water that runs down Albion and the amount of water that is coming down Oak Street, that we have a swamp area off there in our Greenland. And you guys sit up here because of your arrogance and your stupidity of not making a relationship with the Woodlawn. And that's the only out we have in putting a system in that will divert that water. We own the land, but they call the shots. And yet you guys don't see a sense of urgency. I've been telling you guys about this water issue for over 5 years. And although you don't want to address it, those microorganisms that invade houses are about coming to peak of being invisible but affecting residents. We will start seeing some evidence of what this has done to people in our community. You're talking about spending $1 million and putting meters on pipes that, when I showed the condition of pipes 2 years ago on a PowerPoint presentation, all of a sudden our PowerPoint presentation capabilities got disabled intentionally. It's only a plug-in situation. So you didn't want the public to really see these type of pictures? The truth is still the truth. And although you don't engage with me, it doesn't matter. When I come to this format, I present evidence of truth, because when it catches up with you guys, then somebody's going to jail. You guys have colluded, misinformed the public, misused resources, financial reports we won't even talk about. We got the GCIC that has not even put out a report, and they haven't even finished their business of the September 22nd meeting.
You have about a minute.
And we say this is the type of people that we want to do business, our business? I feel for you. You look at me with this, well, I won't say what I want to say, but you know what I'm going to say. You know, this community has so much lack of diversity That's why we're not going anywhere. You all think the same, and without any new ideas, that's why we're stuck in this place and you're overwhelmed and don't know what to do. You got parks messed up, water issues you don't want to address, and you don't want to listen to residents. Well, the chicken's gonna come home to roost. We'll see what happens then. We do have an audit coming up, don't we? We'll see then.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mr. Parrish. Is there anyone else that wishes to address council this evening? Okay, hearing no one else, we'll move on with the agenda. The next item then, going back to the new business, is ordinance 2023-16. An ordinance authorizing amendment of the 2023 estimated revenues and appropriations of the general fund and FEMA grant fund and declaring an emergency. Would we have David explain this first, or should there be a motion first? How about we'll take a motion for the ordinance itself, and then we'll have David give us some more information. So is there a motion for the ordinance?
Start with the, sorry, for the 3 reads.
For 3 reads?
We could do the motion and second for the read.
All right.
Motion and second for the ordinance, and then open.
And then open it. Okay, so we'll start with the one for the 3 reads then, I'm sorry. So is there a motion to waive the 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
And is there a motion for the ordinance itself?
So moved.
Second.
Very good, thank you. All right, Mr. Lumton, can you tell us what is the substance of this particular ordinance?
Thank you, Mr. Bessel. So this ordinance covers 3 different projects or ongoing things in the village. The first is the fire department's grant received through FEMA for the installation of a diesel exhaust system in the new fire department bays over here at the fire station. The second is a increase to the police department budget to allow for the engagement of the services of a code enforcement firm. And then the third is an increase in the appropriations of the public buildings budget to offset an insurance payment for damage caused to the roof at the Summit Park dugouts and park shelter with the windstorm that we had a couple of weeks ago. So I can go item by item if folks would like, or if there are specific questions, but those are the 3 things that are covered by this ordinance.
Okay, thank you, David. Is there discussion about this?
It would be helpful for me if you could go item by item. I'm not following the fund, the account number with what you're saying.
So I'll start with section 1, Fund 101, 1844. Refunds and reimbursements is a $6,700 and change. That covers our village insurance payment for the for the restoration and repair of the roofs at the Summit Park dugouts and shelter. The next 203-1490 grants and aids is the 95% federal funding for the installation of the diesel exhaust system. Then through section 2, 101-101, 12,500. That is the increase in appropriations for the hiring of a code enforcement firm known as NIC. I've had great previous experience with this firm. Currently, we do not have anyone performing code enforcement work in the village. They're engaging them in these services will assist both the police department and the village office in a number of code enforcement tasks. The next is the 101-102 is the village's match for the diesel exhaust grant. It's 5% of the total project cost. Then the next one is 101-705. That's the cost for the restoration of Summit Park. And then 203-102 is the FEMA portion of the expenditure for that diesel exhaust system.
Okay.
Follow it up, please.
Yes, please.
When you speak of hiring a firm,
Mhm.
NIC, for code enforcement
Mhm.
to help our police and fire departments,
So NIC is a firm that does property maintenance and that kind of code enforcement. So grass cutting, property, damage to property, those sorts of things. They would do that work.
Did we previously have someone doing that employed by the village?
We did. We previously had an independent individual that was doing that work. He has since retired. Unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to find someone in that same kind of a situation that's able to do that work for a reasonable price.
And part-time.
And part-time.
Okay.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
This 12,500 is for 1 year?
1 year of services, visiting the village anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week, depending on time of year and conditions.
Great, thank you.
And there's no obligation beyond the 1 year if we don't like the service?
Correct. We can, yeah, it's a 1 year contract with automatic renewals, but we can notify them. There will be a legislation following up to this, assuming this is approved this evening, that will formally appoint them as the code enforcement agent for the village. This is only to set the appropriation to get them under contract for the moment, and then we'll follow up with that in April.
Okay.
Do they issue citations, or
Yes.
what is the process?
Yeah, so they will perform routine checks of the village. They will notify property owners of potential violations, whether it's like along grass or damage to the roof line of a home or something like that. Then they will follow up. They themselves will follow up with those property owners. That work will be reported to myself and to Chief Walsh. And then if it gets to the point where they have to cite someone to mayor's court, they will do the citation and make the appearance and testify on behalf of the village at mayor's court.
Can we start tomorrow?
Well, a few more things, but yes, this is a good step.
Any other questions?
David, can you repeat what you said about April?
What's that? So we have 2 things that are coming up in April. Members of the police committee know we're working on the International Property Maintenance Code, which is a uniform set of rules for property maintenance. NIC prefers working with that code. Their inspectors know it like the back of their hand, so there's not a whole lot of work that's involved there. So that will be coming through police committee and council. Then the second step, and Kathy, you can fill me in here on the specifics, but there'd need to be some kind of legislation formally appointing them and granting them the authority to enforce our code, or the village's code.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
As a private, that company and their employees would be just like our former.
Just
And I can't remember if you have this language. If you don't, we can certainly provide it where we have the police department, anybody as a designee of the code enforcement officer, so that while they'll be here pretty frequently, any supplementary kind of citations or something, that if they're not here one day and something occurs, that can still continue as well.
And we would also put the junk car.
Yeah, the things like, for instance, the junk car ordinance would remain within our code, and it would be their responsibility to enforce that as well. So they would work with that. They also would work with following up on property owners for obtaining building permits, and where they do not, then notifying them that they need to do that and going through those processes.
Thank you. Okay. So any other questions or comments about this particular ordinance? All right, so we have a motion and a second for dispensing with the 3 reads.
In the ordinance, we're good.
In the ordinance, so.
Yep. So for ordinance 2023-16, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Duke.
At this stage, no.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
Thank you. That means that this cannot move forward in emergency, as we need a 5-0.
We need a 5-0
We need a
for that to
5-0
move
for
forward.
it to move
for
forward to get a
emergency.
supermajority.
So does that, that will push back any of this funding then?
Correct. The
And enforcement.
And enforcement?
correct. All of this will have to wait until the April meeting to be presented as a second read.
I'm more concerned with the enforcement and the engagement of an outside company to come in to the village and do so much to enforce our code. And I've just not, I have no concerns about the $46,000
For the grant?
For the grant. My concern is with the $12,500 for hiring NIC.
Are you concerned about the amount of money, or just concerned that there'll be a
The
different code
authorities that we're
enforcement
giving
authority?
them. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Does this negatively impact our grant, David? The $46,000?
I'm not sure of the details. I don't know, Assistant Chief Lerman, if you have any idea on that.
Just, it would delay ordering the supplies.
Okay.
Right now, we're being told that there's one major component of this exhaust system that's about a 6-month lead time to
Okay.
9-month, depending on product availability, so it would just push it out, but other than that, it would not affect it.
May I offer a suggestion, a
Well,
friendly amendment to remove Section 101, 1844. No, I'm sorry, not that. To remove Section 2, 101, Department 101, Operations, 12,500, and let's proceed with the rest of this ordinance.
To remove that? One more question regarding the code enforcement. Is the village under a certain obligation to be able to provide code enforcement? Are we putting ourselves in is there any liability position because we don't have code enforcement at the moment, or we're handicapped in our ability to deliver?
Couldn't speak to a specific liability. However, I don't know that with spring coming and grass growing, the ability for current staffing to enforce our property maintenance code is maxed out at this point. So I would be somewhat concerned about potentials for
Since it would fall back to the police department.
that to fall
have
back to the police department. Correct.
And in this, I believe, the police department's still going to be the issuing authority on any citation that's issued. So we're still working hand in hand with them.
Okay.
They're gonna have issues that they see, we'll have issues that we see, but ultimately, the police department will still be the issuing authority on any citation, whether it be a minor misdemeanor or what it be. They will come to court and testify, but we will still be the appointing authority.
Okay. So, and that's the way it was when Mr. Weber was our officer?
It was the same way.
Their responsibilities would be identical.
Identical. So
That's thank you, Chief, because that's a
that's a good
significant
clarification.
I do not see the village relegating its obligation to a vendor.
No, we'll work hand in hand with that vendor, just like we did with Mr. Weber.
All right.
Okay.
Then I can remove my objection.
I feel better about that too.
Okay.
Okay. So should we take another roll call on the 3 reads? Dispensing with 3 reads?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's
I think
Yeah.
start,
I'm sorry.
A new motion.
restart with the motion in the second.
Restart with the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay. So, restarting with, do I need to reread the ordinance? No, okay. So, is there a motion to dispense with the 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
And now we take our roll call vote, correct?
Yes. For ordinance 2023-16, to dispense with the 3 reads, Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And I too feel much better that the enforcing authority will be our own police department. Okay.
We still need to vote on the ordinance.
Oh, we did not vote on the ordinance?
We did not vote on the ordinance.
All
We
right,
just
so
did the 3 reads.
let's vote on the ordinance then.
For ordinance 2023-16, Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemuth,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So moving on with the agenda, reports from mayor, village administrator, committees, clerk, and treasurer. The mayor's report, there really is no mayor's report. There have been no births or no deaths reported. The only items beyond what will be in committee reports, there is a pancake breakfast on March 18th at the Presbyterian Church from 8 until 11. And then the Glendale Community Library will be presenting Thane Maynard as a speaker on March 29th at 7 p.m. at the Scout House. David, would you please do your village administrator's report?
Thank you, Mike. As we discussed in the Finance Committee meeting in mid-February, the 2022 year-end financials are complete. They're posted on the front page of the village website, along with a summary of what makes up each part of them, similar to the memo that council members received at that Finance Committee meeting. So if anybody has any questions or wants more information, I encourage them to reach out to me about that. We did receive 2 responses to our strategic plan RFP. 2 firms that on first glance appear to be very qualified for the work. There is a small committee of folks across various public bodies that will be participating in a selection process to review those firms, interviews, then bring a firm before council for approval. Hopefully in April, but it might be May. But either way, we're working towards getting those projects complete. I will say that both firms came in. One firm came in at $73,000 for their services, and one came in at $48,000 for their services. To compare what's included in those prices, so we'll present all that information at an upcoming meeting. We are moving on the water meter project. We talked about it at Utilities Committee. Anticipate substantial completion in August or September of this year. Talked about code enforcement a little bit with the previous ordinance. Also learned today we are moving relatively quickly on the renewal of the electricity aggregation. Duke's rates are set to effectively skyrocket over the summer, but our aggregation consultant is working very quickly to lock us in at a much more competitive and user-friendly rate. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to offset a lot of that Duke price increase coming up this summer. Unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, David. Madam Clerk, committee reports?
Finance Committee, please.
And that comes back to me now as a council person. The Finance Committee did meet on the 15th of February. We were given a summary of the 2022 financial report that David mentioned. They had closed the books and gave us a summary of how the year went financially. We talked about items that were in the old business, planning for investment in road improvements and funding for that, planning for investment in water infrastructure improvements and funding for that. And then we looked at some updated information on potential loans for the village. The Finance Committee will likely meet in March, but we'll schedule that offline, March or April.
Thank you. Fire Committee, please.
Fire Committee met on February 9, and the minutes, I think, should be posted. They were posted. They'll be posted again. We had a little glitch on that. But during the meeting, we focused on a number of things, but most important, we had an extremely helpful operational update from all of the officers and the chief. It was an excellent meeting. We all learned a lot more about what is turning out to be the new fire department. And before I turn it over to the chief tonight, I just want to do a little special thanks to the fire department and Dr. Sabrina Leach. They have held a series of CPR and AED training classes recently. 60 members of our community are now able to react appropriately in an emergency. And it's all it was free training, it's part of the department's community risk plan. Dr. Leach hopes to hold more and plans to hold more, some more classes going forward. These are free. They're about an hour. And she wants to hold them. It could be every month, but we'll hear more about that. But because the goal is to train 10% of Glendale residents, And it's a fantastic goal. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
And this is a great department. The things that are going on now are just remarkable.
Thank you.
And I turn it over to you.
Okay, very good. We actually do have 2 more classes
There you
scheduled. The overwhelming ask from the community via the Facebook page. There's been a lot of interaction on Facebook of it, so we went ahead and added 2 more dates.
I forgot to tell you, Dr. Leach was saying that she invited every member of council to join one of the upcoming
Absolutely.
Sessions. It wasn't a challenge, it was an invitation. She just wanted
And if we
The
want to hold
CPR
it,
itself is a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
if we want to hold an elected official only group for all of you, we would be happy to do that as well. But the next classes, April 1st and April 5th. Dr. Leach's goal was to have, if the schedule works out, the first Wednesday of the month and the first Saturday of the month. 1 class, obviously, in the evening, and then 2 on a Saturday. So essentially, 3 classes per month till she meets her goal, and then may scale that back down to once a month, just to see how our turnout and involvement go with that. Some questions that have been raised is how old or young can you be? Really, we think the best age for a teenager or young adult would probably be 10 years old for them to participate in the class, but there is no age limit. So if anybody wants to take the class, I think we're going to communicate that through our Facebook page. I think we're also going to communicate through the village email that gets sent out weekly as well when those classes. A couple other things. I think you all watched the news and heard about the 6-alarm fire in downtown Cincinnati, or saw it on Saturday. One of our members, Whitney Nichols, actually responded to that incident. Whitney is part of the Hamilton County USAR team, which stands for Urban Search and Rescue, and she is part of their drone operation team. So she responded down there and operated a drone, and it's a thermal imaging drone that can see heat. So her and her team were able to identify the hot areas or the hot spots or the areas that are still burning in this vacant structure, so the firefighters don't go in. They can communicate that to the incident commanders on scene. So as big as the incident that was, we were able to deploy Whitney as part of that urban search and rescue team. So she was very happy to be down there. We were happy to have her down there. The other thing that I wanted to touch on in February, we also applied for 2 more grants, so we're waiting to hear back. One was through the state of Ohio, through the Ohio Fire Marshal's Office, and the other one was through the AFG grant as well. So 2 more grants we applied for, with more coming down the pike. So we're trying our best.
Great.
That's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Laws and claims, please.
Laws and Claims Committee met on February 23rd. I'd like to thank the solicitor in behalf of the committee for being with us. We focused on about 9 or 10 rules and discussed possible changes, and we'll work further with the solicitor to bring something before council. We've also been updating the minutes, which are not on the website yet, so I'd like to draw that to the administrator's attention. I sent minutes that have been adopted, and I've just checked now, and they're still not on the website.
We had, as Nancy sort of alluded to, a strange issue with our website. Had some minutes that were posted and then were suddenly not posted. To that, if I can just plug here for a hot second, when all committee members send minutes, cut out the middleman. You can send them directly to Spencer in the office, and he'll post them to the village's website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Police Committee, please.
The Police Committee did meet on February 22nd, and our 2 agenda items we both discussed tonight. The first one, we went into executive session about the part-time officers who were sworn in tonight, and tip of the cap to Chief Walsh for finding them so quickly. And the good news is we're staffed now at the part-time level. And the second thing we discussed was what we just went through with NIC on outsourcing the code enforcement. And we didn't get too deep into it because of what David brought up about we needed to find out what the expense was. So now that we know what the 1-year contract would be, does it need to go back to the police committee?
So the next step for the police committee will be review of that International Property Maintenance Code, as well as, at the next council meeting, the actual adoption of the ordinance that would appoint them as an agent of the police department.
Okay. So we.
I will
prefer,
follow up with you. We probably will have a police committee meeting at some point.
For April probably, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to hopefully do it before then, but we'll see.
Okay.
I'll follow up with everybody by email.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thank you. Police department had a good month for the month of February. We had 13 warnings, 61 citations, 1 auto accident, no burglaries, no thefts. As far as the report, that's all I've got for that. Police department we just finalized and submitted plans for the next phase of the Ohio collaboration. There's 2 more policies that they're looking at this time. One is officer wellness and one is mass protest. So we have submitted all the paperwork for those. We are in the process right now of waiting on the certificates to come in. As well, we have, hopefully, I've been told the new cruiser should be ready to be picked up by noon tomorrow. So after a year of waiting, the newest cruiser will be on the road shortly. That's all I've got.
Very good.
Thank you. Public buildings and historic preservation, please.
Public buildings did not meet, but back to you, David. Should we, you want to check with Tom to see if we should meet?
Yeah, I'm gonna see if there's anything. Can't think of anything off the top of my head, but.
Okay, start talking about the summer list for the
Yes.
project. So Mike and Amy, I'll be in touch about setting up a meeting, so.
Okay.
Tom's crew did complete the work at the depot to replace the beam that was eaten by termite and all that stuff, so, yeah, I want to give him credit for that.
Well done.
Yep.
Thank you. That's it, Becky.
Thank you. Recreation and playgrounds, please.
Rec and Play met twice this past month. February 15th, we met in the Oak Road Greenbelt with Wade and Michelle, who were here this evening, numerous representatives from the Mill Creek Alliance, Tri-State Trails, Great Parks, numerous representatives of the village, Public Works Department. It was fun. We had a brief meeting, heard an outline of what the project is, a brief question and answer session, and then we walked up from the tracks all the way up to Chester Road and back down again, and kind of got a feel for that. And a lot of people, I think, probably have never been there or walked through that, so that was a good experience. Those minutes are posted on the website. We also met on March 1st, and it doesn't look like those are posted yet. I'll make sure that I got those sent to Spencer. March 1st, we were discussing primarily the Summit Park Playground, the current timeline, price, funding, and hoping to be able to place an order for new equipment in July. And there's an 8-month lead time, so that would lead to it coming in about this time next year, if all goes well. So.
Thank you. Streets, public improvements, and lights.
The Streets Committee did meet on February 21. We reviewed the status of the stormwater project at Oak, Albion, Hedgerow in that area, and had a written report from the community of the Transfiguration regarding what their plans are for their northern part of their property, and also heard that they are still in process of investigating all of their water system that was installed when Bethany School did their expansions, and verifying that it is built to the drawings and to the engineering standard, and that it is functioning. So we're waiting for that report to come through. We reviewed the status of the replacement of the traffic signal at Sharon and Route 4. We're ready to go. There'll be a long delay on materials, and that was a grant. That was a sort of grant, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. And then we reviewed plans for street repair and maintenance, including some of the roads that will require water main replacement under them, and looked ahead at some of the other future areas where we'll need to focus our attention. That's it for streets. As we get more information from the community of the Transfiguration on their work, we will be scheduling another meeting.
I hope to have our design for the Oak retention basin and at least some progress on the Hedgerow Albion stormwater work by the end of the month. So
Okay.
we should have a meeting.
A question about that.
Yeah.
David, the design work that's being requested, is that for a retention basin, a larger one on the west side of the, the east side of the track alone, or both sides of the track?
So both options were presented to the committee. We discussed the potential removal of a large number of trees that would be required to dig an adequately sized retention basin. The committee ultimately decided to move forward with the east side only, so the South Troy Oak intersection. There's currently a marshy area there. There is no specifically designed retention in that area. This project would design and install retention on the east side of the railroad tracks in the Greenbelt.
I'll revisit that in committee. I noticed this last rainfall, there was in fact a swimming pool on the west side of the track as well as the east side of the track, which argues for some kind of retention basin there. Don't know how large, but the water, it was there for a number of days. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities, please.
Utilities Committee did meet. We actually met last Thursday. Much of the topics that we discussed have been covered by David and by Mr. Bessel, as we talked about the streets and the water meters installation, how it's progressing. Beyond that, we looked at the need to replace additional water mains throughout the village that are either small or very old and need to be replaced. And they are beneath older streets that are deteriorating, and they need to be resurfaced, and they should not be resurfaced until the mains are replaced. So we have been discussing that entire project, which originally we were going to schedule over a 4-year period or so, and it appears that it makes good sense to combine the 4 proposed projects into one and proceed at once in order to get low-cost funding, low-cost loans. So that is another expense that we will all need to face. The proposed cost for the mains only is approximately $4 million. And then on top of that, we'll need to resurface the streets. So there will be a lot of discussion for the Finance Committee in the next few meetings. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Madam Clerk, do you have a report?
I do. We've identified some additional budgetary savings, which is excellent news. As we've discussed for over a year now, the village is looking at moving to UAN. And as we've been doing the bank transitions and looking at UAN, UAN requires a single checking account, and we had been charged for service fees for every account that we had opened. So having all of those additional checking accounts closed means we don't pay service fees on those, which is excellent.
That's great.
So it's going to be a new way of working since it's a single checking account, but it saves us money, and it will work. It's just a new way.
That's good. And we've been assured by the administration that any reports that are necessary for different funds can be delivered at any time. in particular the reporting, being able to have separate reports for enterprise and general fund,
Mhm.
and then any of
Yes.
the other special funds.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Great.
And we'll also be running, UAN has what they call a sandbox. And so when we buy UAN in a couple months, we'll be running with the sandbox for several months in parallel with fund balance to make sure it all works. Which
Okay.
is a good thing. You don't want to just transition your financial reports over in a, in a light switch at midnight someday. And so we will have plenty of time to take a look at both at the same time.
Good, that's good news. Okay, thank you. The Treasurer, do you have a report for us?
All members of council, actually everyone here, should have a copy of the report for February. We're slowly making some headway. This past week, we also bought about $400,000 of two-year treasuries at 4.8. So
Wonderful.
that's better than what we've had in the past. So
Very good news.
the other thing too is in my capacity on the GCIC, I want to clarify a comment that a resident made. The 2022 report, financial report, and year-end report have been on our website for 2 months. They've been reviewed by the board, they've been reviewed by council, they've been sent to the state, and they've been filed with the IRS. So I think the resident, if he's still here, he could maybe look at our website before making a comment like that, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I recall reviewing that in our last GCIC meeting. So it appears that at 28,000 year-to-date 2023, are we on track for about 180,000 this year?
We're on
maybe?
track, we're on
That's
track.
Wonderful news. Very good news. Well done. Okay.
I would like, if I may, to, since we're talking about investments and income, interest income, as I discussed at the Finance Committee meeting, interest is going to begin and continue to be posted to the general fund first. It is state requirement that that interest be posted in that way. Then at council's leisure, money can be transferred out of the general fund into whether it be VPGI or a streets fund or other kind of special revenue fund for those projects. So it's gonna take, as Becky said, some transition, but I think that once we get into the practice, it will be natural and financial reports will make sense. So general fund numbers might seem a little inflated because that interest is all being posted there, but the money can and will be transferred from the general fund to VPGI for future capital.
So it will be incumbent upon us to be diligent about where and when transfers need to be made.
Mhm.
So who will keep council up to date on that? David, you'll do
Mhm.
that?
Yep.
Okay, very good. All right. So we have been issued financial reports, 2023-02 general operating checking check register, and 2022 year-end financial report. Is there acknowledgement of receipt of those documents?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Mike, I had a couple questions about those, if you're.
that's fine. I was just getting ready to say, are there
Okay.
questions?
David, bothering you again here. The revenues look great. The revenues were above budget, but I caught trash.
Yes.
Trash was down about 15,000 year over year. Do you know what that was?
Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Trash is billed with our utility bills, so that actually only accounts for 3 out of the 4 billings with the new increased cost. So it will catch up. It's one of those kind of ongoing things that now our bills are matched to what fee we pay Rumpke. So it's a net zero for the village. What we receive in utility bill payments for trash recycling, we pay right back out to Rumpke.
Okay. And then on February 24th, the new Ford F-250.
Yes.
Was that for the streets or for water?
That was utilities.
That's utilities.
Vehicle.
Okay.
Replaces a pickup truck the village bought used for about $2,500 that I believe is slowly folding in half.
Okay.
One more year.
Can we get one more year? Apparently not.
Thank you.
Okay. And now they have they have the trucks that they need for
Yes.
some time now.
Yes, yeah.
Which is good.
Very good shape on those
Okay.
vehicles.
Any other questions about the financial reports? Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor of acknowledging receipt? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and in closing, I'll say that I apologize for stumbling over some of the basics, but I was more focused on what is on the agenda and how we keep it moving, and paying very much attention to 6 individuals tonight who had decided to come and spend some time working here for us. So I wanted to make sure that we gave them a good welcome. So I will entertain now a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So 1 hour and 5 minutes. That's the record. Nice job.